Welcome everybody to the BDA Midnight Podcast, brought to you by Excel Fertilizers along with the BDA Foundation, two very, very reliable sponsors that I just made up. And full disclosure, before I begin this podcast, I am not recording it during midnight as I usually do. I'm just being upfront with you guys. We here at BDA, we're never going to lie to you. We're never going to deceive you. We're always going to tell you the truth. And if we don't tell you the truth right away, eventually we'll tell it to you. So there is that. I have some business to attend to this midnight, so I'm not going to be able to record it at that usual time. But nobody cares about my schedule. Let's talk about what happened last night. Well, last night in England. In Sheffield, to be more precise, Errol Spence-Kell Brook by 11th round TKO. Man, my goodness gracious, what a fight. I'm going to tell you something, that fight did not disappoint. There was a little bit of everything for everybody. There was a little boxing, there was a little rumble, power, jabs, footwork, a raucous crowd. The only thing missing was blood. Wasn't that much bleeding in this fight. I would have liked to have seen a little more blood. Nevertheless, fantastic fight. It was everything we hoped for. People had been very, very, very hyped for this fight. I mean, come on. How often do you have a guy who's been propped up as the next big thing, going to the other guy's backyard, a solid contender who only had one loss, and that was to a middleweight. And these guys choose to rumble. I mean, it was a fantastic, fantastic fight. A lot of potential to be had, and it delivered. Now, the thing that was interesting about this fight was, again, with the hype and the outside of the ring shenanigans, it gave us a small taste of what it must have been like to be alive in the 1930s or the 40s or 50s, where you had fans. Like every fighter had a set of fans, and it was more like football, aka soccer, in that both guys had their fans, and it was all surrounded or it was surrounded around the issue of race, right? You had the Irish, you had the Jews, you had the Italians, you had the blacks, you had the Mexicans coming over from Mexico, Puerto Ricans, even a couple of Europeans, and they all had their own fans. And it was great. And guys, from the United States would go to Europe to fight over there. They would fight in the Philippines. They would fight in Africa. They would fight in Latin America. The good old days. You don't see that much often nowadays. Although we did see it, like I said, last night on Saturday. It was fantastic. Let's talk about Spence. Errol Spence has arrived as a bona fide threat at 147 pounds. His body shots are vicious, man. I love a good body shot. I love a good body puncher. There's not that many around. And if they are, they're not as famous as they should be. I'm talking about Juan Francisco Estrada. Great body puncher. Doesn't get the respect he deserves, nor the adoration, nor the attention that he deserves. What I also liked about Spence was that he was tenacious and very durable. He got caught coming in a couple of times, but that didn't deter him from just continuing to barge forward. And he boxed a little bit too. In and out, Kell Brook was trying to control him with a jab. What surprised me too was that sometimes Brook walked forward himself. He wanted to put that pressure and back Spence up. I guess the thinking behind that was that Spence was not as comfortable fighting backwards as he is forward. And that was true. Because when Spence did choose to go forward, he was able to trap Brook on the ropes. And in the beginning, Brook was able to roll with the shots. But ultimately, he was worn down. That's really it. I mean, listen, people are going to talk about the eye. That's what people are talking about now, more than anything. Brook's eye, a repeat of the Golovkin fight. But really, if you look at the fight, it was the body shots that did Brook in as much as anything else. Those body shots, I mean, they were getting under his elbows. They weren't conventional body shots, or actually the way people think of body shots. Usually people, if you ask somebody to throw a body shot, they're going to throw it as a hook, which isn't really the correct way to do it. You should throw it more as half an uppercut, half a hook, so you can really dig in and push people's organs upward. And that's the way Spence does it, man. And he does it in combination. Now, he's not the most active fighter. His activity rate isn't really as high, but he doesn't have to. He's very precise and very strong with those shots, man. He's strong, he's quick. Now, the thing that worries me about Spence a little bit is that he was getting tagged, especially coming in. And that's something that people were talking about, including myself, about how Spence, when he comes forward, he keeps his head on the same axis. It's always on the same axis. He doesn't really move a lot. And some people say, well, he doesn't have to. He's very quick. which is true. But then again, you saw how he was getting hit in this fight. Good chin too, though, because he was able to take those shots. And Brook is no pity pat puncher. He actually puts a lot of mustard behind the right hands, even when he's backing up. And he was able to catch Spence, and Spence just shook him off. I think I haven't seen the fight again since I saw it live, but there was a point where I did see Spence getting a little stunned, but nothing major. So he's got a good chin along with the power of his and the smarts. So he's gonna be a threat to anybody in that division. Now, what's next for Errol Spence? Obviously, the fight that I want to see now is a Keith Thurman fight. But if you think about it, maybe a Porter fight would be more entertaining. But really, if you want to talk about a fight that's going to be for the marbles, all the marbles at 147, it has to be Thurman and Spence. People are going to talk about maybe Spence needs a little more seasoning. I don't think so. Look, he traveled to another guy's backyard and took the fight away in conclusive fashion. That, to me, that right there proves that Spence is as good as he's gonna. I don't know how much better he can get, but if he does improve, I don't think it's gonna be by that much or make that much of a difference. I think now if he fights Thurman, it's a perfect time. 2 undefeated fighters, both coming off good wins, especially Spence with that stoppage win in England. Now, the thing is this, though. If you want to talk about analyzing the fight, the differences between Brook and Thurman. Thurman is a two-handed puncher. Brook, although he has a better jab than Thurman, is more of a. You saw the fight against Spence, how it went. It was mostly the right hand that was doing damage for Kell Brook. The left hook wasn't really there. Neither were the body shots, and Thurman will go to the body. He moves a lot more than Brook does, and he's got great hooks, uppercuts. He also likes to go to the body, like I said. Now the problem is that's all good and fine for Thurman. The problem is he's been hurt to the body. He was hurt against Collazo, and he was hurt against Porter. And I do remember Danny Garcia getting a couple of shots in there too. And now, as we all know, Spence's bread and butter are those body shots. So you tell me what the hell's going to happen in that fight. For sure, Spence is going to try to target that body. And it's easy to say, though. This is what's going to be intriguing. It's easy to say, I'm going to walk Thurman down. I'm just going to fucking go in there and pressure him. Porter tried to do it, and he got tagged a couple of times. If it wasn't for his conditioning and his chin, he would have been stopped. And like I said, Spence can be hit. So what does this mean for us fans? It means it's going to be a great fight. And it should be done pronto, as soon as possible. Stop with the fucking waiting and the shim-shamming and the tiptoeing around the issue. We want the fight now. Spence has shown us that he's willing to get the fights as early as possible. Thurman, he likes to take his sweet ass time. Now apparently Thurman is injured. There's some speculation going around the internet that Al Heyman called him and said, listen, you're going to say you had an injury. I'm not injured. Well, if you don't say what I tell you to say, you're going to be injured. So shut the fuck up and do as I say. So now what's going to happen? Well, the fight is not going to happen anytime soon. But and probably Thurman, once he comes out all healed up, he's probably going to want a tune-up or something. So, I don't have a positive outlook with that fight happening anytime soon. But hey, you never know. Maybe if I think it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Who knows? But that's one big fight that we can all look forward to. Now, when it comes to Brook, you guys should take a little break. This is 2 stoppages in a row for him, where he's taken a lot of punishment and sustained eye injuries. And now eye injuries are no joke. He's gotta take a little break here. There's no shame in that. Khan, though, Amir Khan, who was in the arena watching the fight, is now calling him out. He's calling Brook out. Now, I can't say that one guy avoided the other. Maybe it was both, maybe it wasn't, maybe they both had bigger fights down the line, especially Khan, who's been in there against the bigger names than Brook. So maybe he said, forget about Brook, I'm going to take on Canelo, I'm going to take on Devin Alexander, I'm going to get paid more and fight in the United States, who knows. Now the fight, though, is ripe for the making. like I said, I don't think the reason why I say neither guy was avoiding each other was because Kansas fought everybody, and he went up to 160 to fight Canelo. Ditto for Brook, who went up to 160 to fight Golovkin. Those are two fights from both guys that they didn't need to take, but they went ahead and chased, and they were chasing glory. They went for it, and that's what more fighters should do. So a fight between these two guys who obviously dislike each other is a natural. And how do I know they dislike each other? Well, you've all seen the videos, right? You've all seen the videos of each other, each guy calling each other out. Brook saying, making a little fun of Khan for having been knocked out cold, and now Khan returning the favor by saying he would never would have quit against Brook. Let me just, and that brings me, I'm looking at some of the notes that I scribbled here. This is a serious question here, because Khan was shitting on Brook for quitting, and as did other fighters. We'll get to that in a minute. But here's a serious question, theoretical question, hypothetical. What's worse, or what would you guys prefer? Would you prefer to get knocked out cold, or would you prefer to quit now, or have your corner throwing the towel? Of course, quitting is like I said in one of my podcasts, it's the worst thing, that it's a cardinal sin in boxing. You just don't do it. But what is worse, getting knocked out or getting beaten to submission? On the one hand, let's take a look at the issues here. On the one hand, getting knocked out means you went out on your shield. That's true. On the other hand, it means that you couldn't see the punch coming. You didn't see the punch coming. The other guy did. Forget about chins. This is about, usually if you can see a punch coming, you can either roll with it, or sort of mentally you expect the shot, and that allows you to take it and not go down. You might be hurt, you might get wobbled, but you won't go out. Your lights won't get put out, like you didn't pay the electric bill. So which one would you choose? Because Khan is saying, well, I'd never quit, but you never got the opportunity to quit because you were knocked out cold. On the other hand, to Khan's credit, because I'm looking at this from both sides, when he was fighting Danny Garcia, and he got wobbled, he never stopped trying to fight. Same thing against Maidana. Brook, once he encountered resistance here in the fight, he took a knee, and even in the Golovkin fight, his trainer Bernard Ingle threw in the towel. But like Bernard Hopkins said in the HBO telecast during that fight, he said he saw Brook started giving physical cues, facial cues to his trainer, saying, listen, I don't want to be here anymore, throw in the towel for me. Because that's usually what some boxers will do. They're too macho to say, hey, listen, I want to quit. They're not going to say it outright. So what they'll do is they'll show through body language to their trainer or to the ref or to the doctor that they don't want to continue anymore, because they want somebody else to pull them out of the fight. It's the ego here involved. But it's a hypothetical question. What would you rather do? Get knocked out, or have your trainer stop it, or quitting? I gotta tell you, I don't know. I don't know which one I would choose. On the one hand, you get knocked out. Who knows what the hell's going on in your head? On the other hand, if you quit, well, that's sort of saying, I can't do it anymore. I'm out of this fight. And also, if you're taking... If that beating is that bad that you want to quit, it's not good for your head either. Then again, if you're thinking about your head all the time, maybe you shouldn't be a boxer, right? That's why I'm not a boxer. As for the quitting and fighters shitting on and fans also shitting on Brook, there was another guy shitting on Brook for quitting. That was Gervonta Tank Davis, the recently coronated IBF. What was guys know I don't pay attention to the title, so I don't know what title he has, but he was shitting on Brook. And this is from Gervonta Davis, by the way, a guy who's never fought anyone near as good as Porter, Golovkin, or Spence. It's one thing for boxing fans to criticize a guy for quitting. When other boxers do it, I don't know. I don't know what to say to that. In this situation, Brook quitting was acceptable by my standards. And they are pretty high standards, by the way. You guys should know that. I think he had to quit. Even Spence said it. He says, this guy's eyes was fucked up. And if he continued, it might have gotten worse in the end of his career. This wasn't Guerrero quitting in the third round, or what was it? Third round when he quit against Yoel Jordan. Remember that fight where it was clear he didn't feel like it was his night, so he just called it a night and said, hey, listen, I can't see. Let's stop the fight before we go to the scorecards. This wasn't Durant quitting in the Leonard rematch because he'd been partying too much, or because Leonard was outboxing him and he just didn't want to go through the humiliation. I mean, I don't know. This was an acceptable quit job to me. And and also the guy, take into consideration, he was taking a beating to the body. He was getting worn down. He was tired. He was exhausted, and he had that eye injury. So yeah, I do think he should have quit. But it just goes to show you how cruel this sport can be, man. Just not just by the fans, but by other fighters, inside and outside the ring. You quit, cardinal sin right there. Whether it was justified or not, people will go after you. The wolves are gonna do it. People are gonna kick you while you're down. Now all we can do, however, is wait and see how these same boxers that are shitting on him, how they react when they're in his shoes. Again, maybe they won't have to be in his shoes. Maybe they'll just get knocked out cold and they'll never have the chance to say, hey, I quit. Because, it's kind of hard to quit when you're lying unconscious on the ground with shit in your pants. I don't know. But it does pose an interesting question. A very interesting question. We had a revelation here with Errol Spence. The guy is a gem. Not quite the unmovable force that we thought he was, but he did answer a lot of questions. He is an excellent addition to a division that's jam-packed with killers. Killers. It's going to be a great couple of years to watch the welterweights getting it on. Anyway, guys, this was a BDA Midnight Podcast. Not recorded during midnight, unfortunately. So that's why maybe there wasn't that much energy in it. But thank you for joining us anyway, guys. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. And we will see you in the next one.